Björn, welcome. The
Hi,
stage is
everyone.
yours. We talk about cooking. That's good.
We talk about cooking. Yeah, exactly. I hope everyone can hear me. Wolfgang, can you confirm that my
Yes,
mic is
yes.
working?
Yep.
Sweet, perfect. So yeah, we talk about cooking. Yeah, my name is Bjorn. I'm one of the managing directors of AMSYS, Applicable Management Systems, and today in this webinar, I want to give you a quick appetizing recipe to combine smart PCNs with component databases and also internal data. Um, Beforehand, a quick introduction to who's AMSYS and what we are doing. AMSYS is a consulting and software service provider. We have our expertise in lifecycle obsolescence, change, and configuration, and also risk management. We do work for diverse verticals in different industries, being in the transportation industry, but also military, space, aircraft industry, automotive, energy, oil and gas, medical appliances, where we are allowed to provide our consulting services and workshops and trainings, audits, and also concept development. Over the years, a couple of products have evolved, and one of them, thank you, Stuart. We just heard in one of the previous speakers, is the largest exchange portal for railroad operators within Europe. And Stuart, I can't wait to receive smart PCN information also from Alstom. It will be of big value for all the members of the portal. Also, over the years, developed a pretty massive obsolescence management and risk management application called the Lifecycle Management Client. And as already shared by Sarah early in the chat, we are honored to provide one of the readers, generators of smart PCN files called the PCN generator. So if you want to learn more, it's a free tool. Visit pcngenerator.com for the minimum mandatory fields, or for more in-depth smart PCN knowledge, smartpcn.pcngenerator.com. Little overview of our application. It's called the Lifecycle Management Client. It maps individual processes to our customers' needs. Obviously, we can read and write smart PCN files using interfaces to individual manufacturers and suppliers, but we also do use commercially available databases, mainly Silicon Expert, but it can also be others. We integrate our application with already existing ERP, PLM systems, or other internal information that is already available at our customers. And the application does consist out of two modules. One is the risk management module, where we mainly focusing, and this is where we are coming from, the proactive side of obsolescence management. But I will talk about that a little later. The other module is the obsolescence management module, where we usually get information from the outside world in the smart PCN format, then open cases, find solutions within the application, and also then afterwards send out smart PCN files out of the application. Usually, when I start presentations, I like to ask questions, but not to take too much of your time, actually. I will answer the question beforehand. So my question in this audience would be, and I asked this question in one of the last IAM conferences as well, what are the major challenges each and every one is currently facing? It could be like really hard PDNs, obsolescence issues that arise on the market. It can be changes of items that affect fit form function, or production adjustments where the item is still available, but just in different form, for example. We already heard about issues with environmental compliance with RHS, REACH, and skip reporting and information. We have to document and transport through our whole supply chain. And obviously, especially within the last years, with all the allocation around and shortages, long lead times, price increases, can be supply chain disruptions, or stakeholder communication, be it internal or external with suppliers or customers. So when I usually ask the question in one of my speeches, there is not only one issue individuals are faced with. Can be a multiple or combination of those, and especially within the last years, I think most of the issues or feedback that I received where companies are struggling with are obsolescence issues, and especially, as I just said, within the last years, it's supply chain disruptions. All these different obstacles companies have to overcome need to be managed in a proper obsolescence management discipline. And smartPCN obviously can help here because it focuses on obviously stakeholder communication, including all different types of changes that are out there in the market. So once receiving any notification that is out there in the market, it quickly comes to the question, how do I handle all the information when there's so much change and so much things happening out there? Just to give you a little bit of an example, only within the last year, only in 2022, was one of our data providers, Silicon Expert. We had access, and I had to write down the number to really not forget it. We had access to more than 6.3 million product change and discontinuance notices from over 1,000 different manufacturers. Obviously, you're not interested in each and every one of those 6.3 million product change and product discontinuance notices, but just to give you a little bit of a feeling what is really happening out there and how much data is available out there. What we usually do as other applications as well, we map and match internal readily available information from customer part numbers and manufacturer part numbers to the information that you actually need. But then even still, with what I just learned from Stuart, if you have, for example, 50,000 unique manufacturing part numbers, there is a lot of PCNs, PDNs coming in, and we've seen the numbers, and thank you other speakers to providing that so openly. So what each and every individual and company has to do is to focus on what is really relevant to me. And I've made a small picture on what different types of PCNs, PDNs are available out there in the market. As one of our major data partners is Silicon Expert, I have listed down the different categories that you can get through one of the commercial readily available databases out there. In total, it is 35 different classifications of PCNs and PDNs. The question is, what is really relevant to you and your company? Good thing is they are directly mappable and matchable with the major smartPCN categories, narrowing it down to a number of still 25 different types of changes that are happening out there in the market. So one impulse I want to give here today is get your head around and really classify that even further down. So just to give you an example how we usually set up our application to make it easier for the user to define what is really important and what might not be on first prioritization is to narrowing it down to 4 different categorization. Whilst the first one, the obsolescence issues happening out there, usually have a very high criticality where immediate action is required. All the technical PCNs that have fit, form, function, or material changes out there are still from high criticality from our point of view, where individuals, specialists within your company need to check or assess if it might affect heavily one of your products where this item is built in. Another category, when it comes to packaging or any other documentation, we would consider this as medium criticality, where I would forward this information to the responsible individual to have a look at that. And others, But this is just an example, like if the production side or process side might change, it might be of low criticality where I just forward it to the relevant department, being it incoming goods department or something, but I don't do anything much to change my internal documentation. This is just one example. So I would say each and every company has to do it by themselves. And Dieter gave an example as well, as he did it with Festo. So once a PCN, PDN comes in, hopefully in the smart PCN format, the question is, how do I distribute the information? Because I learned from one of our customers that firefighting is not a method and certainly not the optimal solution. And besides having great information in a digital format, from my point of view, you need a little bit more that is required for successful management of obsolescence, supply chain disruptions, PCNs, and the like. First of all, you might want to consider that you might want to have good contracts and communication channels throughout your whole supply chain with suppliers and customers to really receive the relevant information. So you might want to consider to even request the smart PCN format from your direct suppliers in a contract. However, afterwards, once you receive a notification, you still need clear internal responsibilities, who is taking care of that notification, who is doing what and when, and how do you come to the optimal solution to your obvious problem. You need processes for that as well, for the processing of notifications, but as an overall obsolescence management discipline, also for your proactive risk assessment. Usually, you have a lot of internal information that you might want to consider and aggregate as well from your PLM and ERP system, but also from external sources, from one of the database providers that are, as I see the delegates list, are present here as well today. And further documentation, for example, if you test possible alternatives, replacements, and so on, it might be PDF documentations or whatsoever is available within your company. And in the end, your CEO or whoever is your boss might come around, taps on your shoulder if you're taking care of all the PCNs, PDNs, PCNs and PDNs, and is asking you, what are you doing there all day? So what's the value? And good companies, they can bring the value, and we've seen some numbers today. So you might want to require dashboards and management reports. So as a typical company, and I just name it as a company X today, usually, and as already stated before, you have a lot of internal and external data you want to combine and you have to take care of that is out there in the market. And I want to draw a little picture now, where we find as a consulting company where typical company starts when they start taking care of proper obsolescence management. So usually each and every company is already in touch with their manufacturers and suppliers, so they get information, hopefully not via non-readable PDFs anymore, but however on a manual way. Hopefully you're already one step further and get the smart PCN files that are at the moment still defined, the VDMA 24903, and later on, as we learned from Wolfgang earlier, also in the 6242-3. Maybe over the years, you have already also defined individual formats with your suppliers, how you want to receive PCNs and PDNs in Excel spreadsheets or whatsoever. You might be already using one of the databases that are out there that are usually called obsolescence or component databases, being Silicon Expert, IHS, Z2 Data, QStar, PCN Global, or there's so many out there that you might want to use that are bringing you a lot of information and pretty valuable information to your company. Or you do a little bit of research by yourself in the World Wide Web from various other sources and try to find the information that you need at your manufacturers or suppliers' websites. As already stated, then you certainly have an internal process, and you have to map all these informations with your tailored responsibilities to your individual needs and so on within your company to process the data provided. Link it to a PLM system to at least answer the question once you receive the PCN or PDN, hey, where is this item built in? How often do I use it? What products are affected? And what's the usage rate overall? You might need some information out of your ERP system to find a proper solution, like what is my current stock levels, what's my future demand, what is usually stored in any of the ERP systems. And as stated earlier, also you might want to require some documentation, internal documentation that you might want to attach to find a proper solution. Personal information, that's the hardest to connect to, because with all the specialists working within your organization, what we often find as well, that there's a lot of like decentralized warehouses, so to say, where individuals have built their own spreadsheets and access databases and so on, and you might want to connect to them as well. To find the best solution to PCN, PDN, individuals usually cannot do that alone. They need support from different departments, being it purchasing, engineering, quality assurance, sales, product management, or even budgets from their CEOs. So task and case management is a big requirement, as well as I personally don't like to manage myself with Outlook, calendar invites and reminders and so on. So you might want to consider to automate that. Going beyond the reactive approach to obsolescence, you might want to do some risk assessments to your overall products. And this is what we are majorly focusing on. And as stated earlier, data analysis and management reports are mandatory as well. If you're a company that is producing some goods, your customers might sit there and requests notification as well in the VDMA 24903 or smartPCN. Sorry, I'm missing the smartPCN logo here. And as stated from Stuart Broadbent from Alstom earlier, this is the exact direction they are going to at the moment. The tool companies as early adopters, or where every company usually starts with, the tool they are using is Excel spreadsheets and so on. But I think with all these information that we need to combine, we all already understand that this is not the perfect tool to use. And this is how we started thinking about it. How can we process all the data in the best way that is out there in the market? So in an ideal world, I have direct access via API or imports for different component obsolescence databases or other sources, interfaces and API access to my PLM or ERP systems. I can upload the diverse documentations that I need to find proper solutions. I can manually add information. I have an automatic task management and also do the overall risk assessment fully automated. To then, after all, export management reports, cost analysis, or time reports. How long do I even need to process a case within my company, and also directly export smartPCN files to provide it to my customer later on. We tried to find a solution or cut down one of these arrows. We're thinking about that a lot, and the only way or the only point where we saw a lot of improvement possibilities to bring it to an automated way is actually with the direct connection to my manufacturer and suppliers. So this is why we in our application did cut down these arrows. And if companies are using our lifecycle management client, each and every company and each and every of our customers does get an individual input mask under a unique URL that they can share with their manufacturers and suppliers to then start the digital and automated communication. And now comes the point where at least, or at minimum, and not to break the time here, I want to show you that piece part, how it actually works in a small live demo. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to buy our lifecycle management client now. I mean, I will be happy if you would do, but however, in the end, I just want to show you how easy it is to implement a proper smart PCN compliant format within your application. So I'm switching screens now. So this is now really live demo. This is our task management. I'm not looking into the proactive side of obsolescence, all the risk management tools. So this is usually all the different cases that are open within my company in my demo system here in the obsolescence management module of the lifecycle management client. I will not click in one of them now. But I can already tell you, I will give you a little bit intro now as well. So this is usually a case internally where you steer your processes. Pretty simple here now as well. In my demo, status can be from draft to in progress to closed, with different tasks, comments, and different solutions to a problem. But I want to show you now how you can actually start a case pretty easily. And I want to show you the input mask that we provide for each and every of our customers. So this is how the input mask for my demo system looks at the moment. And as unfortunately, but Stuart, we should talk about that later maybe, and that you can provide already some milestone files. I'm going to the smartPCN org downloads website now. So that's great resource here as well. So whoever wants to get involved more with smartPCN, go to smartpcn.org. And I'm at the download site now, and I'm downloading an example zip file now here from their website. So if I'm now again in the input mask to my demo system of the AMSYS lifecycle management client, I could, as a supplier to the customer who is using the system, manually insert all the information that is defined in the smartPCN format. It is usually defined, and Wolfgang explained that earlier, within master data, different categories of item concerns. I can add items, description, and attachments to then finally send the PCN. However, I'm now setting myself in a position where I can already provide the smartPCN information to my client directly. So I could just easily switch to import a PCN PDN, and for demonstrations purposes, now using the test file that I just downloaded, and I think it's that one here, open it. And what I see now is all these data fields are automatically filled out. All the master data here now provided by the smartPCN working group of the component obsolescence group Germany. It has different smartPCN formats, item concerns. In my PCN, I have description and attachments, and in the end, I just type in my email address to get a notification as well that I successfully send this smartPCN file to my customer, and just quickly send OK. I get a quick notification here. I can see on my laptop down here, email is received. And how will it look internally in my system now? In our application, we have a lot of different types of notifications from the databases and so on when there's status changes out there in the market. But what I just received, and I see it here, that's exactly the three items that were defined in my PCN that I just uploaded as a user. And they have already been pre-classified as the criticality that I talked earlier about. That can be tailored to your individual needs anyhow as well, but I'm gonna have a look at that very high criticality item here for demonstration purposes, where we're talking about discontinuance. I just simply click on it. I see all the information that was provided, like master data, items concerned, and descriptions. Don't worry, this is the only, I'm not showing all the smartPCN data fields here. That can be done, but for demonstration purposes, I will only show the mandatory and minimum fields for starters. with the smartPCN file. So I can review here now as a user of the application, is it all correct data? Do I have everything that I want? I can open attachments and easily create a case to start my internal workflow, given it a little bit of a priority, save it, and my internal workflow will start right from here. Individuals within my company will get informed, tasks can automatically be created, and so on. So whoever wants to have a little bit more deeper look into the application, as said earlier, I wanted to give a little live demo, but that should be enough for that little portion of showing you here how easy it is to set up systems that are smartPCN compliant. Who wants to test more goes to lcmclient.com, request for a trial, and we can talk after this webinar. I will go back now again to my presentation. Oh, I see there's already something going on in the chat, so I'm really looking forward to the discussion. I want to set a little impulse now. So we all know now that, whoops, set up here. We all know now, and we understood throughout this webinar, that smartPCN is a great vehicle. It is working, obviously. You have seen different types of solutions. But there's one thing, and maybe I can set an impulse here to start a new working group or have it implemented once the smartPCN format is then transformed into the international standardization of the 6242 obsolescence management standard. There's one thing we should not forget. And really, hopefully, we all will go into that direction, that we will receive PCNs and PDNs in a digital format, be it from one of the component obsolescence databases that provide me with the information, or be it directly through my own supply chain from my suppliers and manufacturers. We should not forget that waiting for change and discontinuance to happen might already be too late. And to be honest, it is still reactive. Looking and being also part of the international standardization bodies, what is also in the 6242 part 1 is pretty good explanation how a proactive approach to obsolescence and risk assessments should be done. And in this instance, instead of having an already fixed date of an end of production or effective date of an item that is already discontinued, we're more or less talking about an end of production forecasts, or what you sometimes hear as well is the years to end of life forecast. From the environmental perspective, we might want to consider not already existing environmental legislations, but what might change in the future. There's a couple of databases out there as well that provide me with historical supply chain information. How did lead times and prices change over time? But let's get that straight. What happened in the past, I'm not really interested in that anymore. Usually companies are interested in what will happen from tomorrow. Will the price even more increase? Will my lead times go up or will they go down? And all this information is needed for a proper proactive risk assessment, where you usually combine likelihoods of an item becoming obsolete or changed with individual impacts. And to sum up, I'm taking one of the pictures I got from the IEC 6242 2019, and I'm sure most of you have already seen it. Proper risk assessment process here really on a high level. Indeed, once you narrow it down and you go into more detail, it gets way more complex. But from a high level perspective, what you have to do is you have to have a lot of likelihood data. Likelihood meaning you need to know current obsolescence statuses, end of production forecasts, number of manufacturers, or maybe even supply chain forecasts, price forecasts, etc., what I just talked about earlier. And you need to combine it with your individual impacts, whatever this event might mean for your company. This is usually then driven on your internal inventory levels, your consumption or usage rate, or simply just was the answer to the question like, hey, is this item a critical or essential item to me? You then combine for each and every item in your overall configuration for diverse products, these two impact factors to do the overall risk assessment. To then come to some results, and I really like this traffic light here because these three colors are usually the colors that management still understands. You might then come up with some high-risk items where you need to take immediate actions, medium-risk items that you still want to observe, and low-risk items where you don't want to do something now at the moment. How we have integrated it in our application is we take all the likelihood data from databases that are out there in the market with direct API integration into our application. Then also from the impact level side, we usually get customer data from their PLM and ERP system, combine it in our application, and do this risk assessment process to come up with proper results and afterwards during the process. And as an impulse now, and I know smartPCN was initially never meant to provide these data, but to get this straight, the smartPCN working group of the Component Obsolescence Group Germany, as being the German chapter of the International Institute of Obsolescence Management, did such a great job in defining how we should transport PCNs and PDNs in the reactive way on the market. My question is now, can smartPCN also be used to provide this likelihood data of end of production forecasts, number of manufacturers out there in the market, and so on, to even improve the use of smartPCN? So in a world where we are going into more and more digital, what if there could be a smartPCN, similar or same container, somewhere in the future, that can also be used for the transportation of needed likelihood data for a proper risk assessment? And looking at the time right now, my question to the audience would be, what is already there and what is still missing, and how can we improve, and how can smartPCN improve to get even better than it is already today? Don't get me wrong, to not only focusing on the reactive side on obsolescence, but also to the proactive side. But before we maybe come to that question, and I still want to give Tim some time to also give his impulse to this webinar today. So I will ask this question again at the end of the webinar. I want to thank you for listening to me and taking your time for today's webinar. And I'm open now for your questions. Now in the chat or later on. Don't hesitate to get in touch with me at my contact details here, or visit one of our websites. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bjoern. So thank you for your insights in how to use smartPCN, also again in a different way, different tooling. Yes, so we have 2 questions. I think you can read it in the chat anyhow.
I'm opening it right now. So where's the questions? I'm going to start with Phil. OCMs, OEMs may need to make a value judgment between protection their intellectual property, as in allowing visibility of bill of materials, versus realizing the benefits of smartPCN. I'm not sure if I get the question right, actually. I'm going to go to another question. Maybe Phil, maybe you can rephrase the question in the meantime. I think
it has to do, Bjoern, it has to do with one of the questions that had been raised before. So the question is always, I think when you send out a bill of materials, that's always the same, you know, when, for example, when you are a car manufacturer, you know that the problem, so you get maybe a full lightning equipment, but you would be interested in knowing which of the components go obsolete in there. but the responsibility of the bill of material is not within you, it is within the provider of the lighting equipment.
Yeah. So thank you, Wolfgang, for making it a little bit more clearer. So when I proposed the idea to also transmit proactive information using smartPCN, I didn't mean to make it or to make bill of materials publicly available in any database, but just between two parties, especially for items and commodities that we don't find in commercially available obsolescence databases, because they are usually built for active, passive components, also connectors and standard items. But there might be special to type items that a supplier produced just for me and so on. Obviously, I might still need to contract him and making sure that intellectual property is then secure and safe. But here the likelihood might be higher that that supplier that is producing special to type equipment for me might want to consider to also provide proactive information with the smartPCN format just for me, not for public domain. So yes, certainly intellectual property needs to be secured in any way. And Phil, I hope I answered the question here. Okay, Tim asked a question. When you conduct the OM risk assessment, do you consider supply chain resilience? Yes and no. We're still looking for some better data actually to I would say to do it 100%. So there is providers out there that provide me with information on how resilient my overall supply chain not only was my first tier, but also second and third tier suppliers are, if it is commercial off-the-shelf, readily available item. We can integrate these data in our application and insert it in the overall risk assessment procedure. However, this data, I think, is not long enough on the market to really say if the data is good enough. And I hope there will be more databases that we can integrate to even get a little better. So we're still in the starting phase, and by IT tools, certainly yes. But as most of the software, it comes down to reliability of data, and this is where I still see some improvement to be taken. Phil, I'm happy to hear that you find that a useful answer. Tim, I hope I did answer your question as well.
So further questions to Bjoern?
So I'm happy to take more questions now or at the end of the webinar, or even in personal. There's my contact details, and yeah, you might want to think about how we can even more improve, or especially the owners of the smartPCN and the great inventors of the smartPCN, the COG working group, can maybe improve, and hopefully we will find some time to discuss that later, to use this great vehicle also for the proactive part of an overall obsolescence management implementation.
Yeah, and actually we already have some mechanism in there, like you are able to basically to give some indication of a life cycle. There's an index from 0 to 99, so you can already say, okay, in my life cycle, this part is already old. I haven't issued now an end of life notification, but it comes close to basically not recommended for new designs and all those things as well. Yeah,
there is some indications. I agree, but I think I mean our like really having or using already existing data fields as we have in the smartPCN today, like the real end of production date. It could also be an end of production forecast that then can be transmitted as the other databases that we're using for the electronical components, active, passive connectors, and so on, that's providing me with the data. But to really get better in the communication channels where I need direct contact through my supply chain because it is special to type equipment or any of the commodities that is not already covered by commercially available databases. So I'm looking forward to a bright future of smartPCN here.
Yeah, I mean, we all do. And I mean, of course, you have also to look at the commercial side. So many of the manufacturers and suppliers are very reluctant to provide this information. First of all, in many cases, they don't know it because you have a lot of incidents, they happen. And they basically, if a factory blows up, then of course you have immediately obsolescence. So you don't that before.
Sure.
And many of those commercial decisions are kept very secret.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Exactly.
I would now, if I mean, I haven't seen any further question here, so I would really postpone that discussion to the end and
Sure.
now hand over to Tim. Tim, I think you're waiting desperately to provide your presentation.